Welcome to the Redefining Sales Podcast, where we reimagine and redefine sales in a digital world. In this new series, we have absolutely scoured the world to bring you only the best of the very best. We will be working with each of the thought leaders to unpack all of their years of experience, their pearls of wisdom, and nuggets of gold into bite-sized chunks that will enable you to redefine your sales. Welcome. In this episode, we are speaking to the absolutely phenomenal Maz Farrelly. I cannot explain to you how incredible Maz is and how much you are going to get out of this episode. Let me tell you a little bit about Maz. Maz's content has been viewed more than 8 billion times. That is insane. She has produced some of the world's biggest TV brands, including The X Factor, Celebrity Apprentice, Big Brother, Farmer Wants a Wife, and so many more. She has worked for the BBC, ITV, ABC, 9, 7, 10, Foxtel, and many others. Her bookshelves are filled with international awards such as BAFTAs. Maz, not only has she produced phenomenal content, she now also works with corporate clients to provide training and creative strategy for smart people who want to deliver their amazing stories with the power of a cement fist in a cashmere glove. In this episode, we are going to unpack what does it take to get 8 billion views, but not just views, engagement, and then action. We talk about the fact that in Britain's Got Talent, more people voted on the finale than in the general election. So Maz is going to help unpack for us, how do you tell the most compelling story that drives engagement and action for your business? Enjoy. Maz, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. You have no idea how ridiculously excited I am to have you here. So thank you. I have this absolute paranoia that one day I'll forget.
I did the hidden camera show with Noel's house party, did the gotchas. And my boyfriend was the director, and we started a gotcha. And we were about a minute in, and he went, "Oh my God, record!" Luckily, nothing had happened. I said, "Oh, baby, I might have to fire you, and I'm going to fire myself." Yeah, imagine, hidden camera, so you can't do it twice.
Oh, fun fact for you, Noel Edmonds lived in the manor house in my parents' village. That's our little claim to fame.
Ooh.
It's not a very good one, but we'll take it.
Yeah, take that one. He's an interesting dude. Yeah, he's an interesting dude.
All right, I'm going to jump into it so I can get as much of your brain as humanly possible.
Cool.
Maz, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. You have no idea how ridiculously excited I am to have you here. So thank you.
Well, right back at you. I've been listening. I've been doing my research, and I've been listening to lots of you on your podcast. And you are very, very good. You have very interesting guests. So I'm very pleased to be invited along. And your questions are always really, really insightful and really good. And I say that as a producer and a listener, because I always listen as a listener, but I can't not be a producer because it's in my DNA. So I'm always critiquing everything. I'm so boring to watch anything with or listen to anything with. My friends allow me 3 strikes, and they go, "You're allowed 3 comments. And then you have to go and sit in your bedroom." Okay.
I want you on Gogglebox now. Is it Gogglebox? Where we watch you critique. That would be brilliant.
Can you imagine the pitch for Gogglebox? So I want to make a TV show about people watching TV, about people watching TV and commenting on TV. You'd be like, "No, run that one by me again." So it's a show about people watching TV and commenting on people watching TV. It's just genius, isn't it? That is an example of what I'm obsessed with, which is thinking differently.
Yep.
I'm obsessed with it. Obsessed.
So I'm going to take that thinking differently and run with it. What I love about you is one of your, I'm going to say it's your favorite expression. You might correct me and say it's not, but I use it.
I got a chin. Is it that one?
Damn it, no. I use this in our office every day. There are 2 people I quote in our office pretty much daily to elevate our thinking and to get us to think differently. And it's almost like a checklist and a peer review to challenge
challenge ourselves, to your point, on have we thought differently. And the expression that I love that I've heard you talk about is, it's not my job to be interested in you, it's your job to be interesting. But I need you to say it because you deliver it with such a punch. And I actually want to jump into that, because I think that to have had your content watched over 8 billion times, which is just insane, you have got to understand what exactly is it that makes it different and interesting. So can you unpack that a bit for us?
Yes, I am a very simple soul. That I am so simple. I don't have a degree. I did very poorly at school because I was bored, because it wasn't interesting. So I didn't pay any attention to it. If they'd wanted my attention, they should have given me something interesting. I believe that interesting is transactional. So we spend time, we pay attention. They are transactional things. And if you want someone to listen to your podcast, you have to make it interesting. If I'm going to give you my time to read your website, to look at your assets, to have a conversation with you, to listen to your podcast, I'm going to give you my time. I will never have more time. It is a cake that has an infinite number of slices. When I'm giving you a slice of that cake, I'm giving it to you. I can never have that slice back again. And I take that really seriously with my audiences. I take it really seriously. Everything I do is about my clients, my audience, everything. All I do is I obsess about them. What do you want? How can I give it to you? What do you want that you don't even know you want, that I can give to you to make it interesting? And because people have websites, I think very often corporates are very guilty of this. They think that we're going to read them. Just because they're there, we're going to read them. If they post something, they think we'll watch it. If they post a blog, they think that we'll read it. Well, only read it if it's interesting. If you're at a conference, again in the future, and someone comes up to you and you say, hi, what do you do? What's your name? And they say something really dull, you're going to go, hang on a second, I'm just going to go and get a coffee. I'll just be right back. And you will never come back. And that's the difference between Uber being launched and Uber not being launched. Because you could have the best idea on earth. You could have the best service, product, idea. But if you can't tell people what it is in a really interesting way and make people interested in you, you're dead in the water. And I know this from TV, because when I make TV shows or documentaries or films, if it's not good in the first 30 seconds and it doesn't grab your attention, you will go and you will never come back. And in fact, you won't watch it. If my Netflix ad is not amazing, you're not even going to click on my show. So it goes right back. Everything has to be interesting. If it isn't, nobody is interested. And it is like taking off the blinkers when you're a business or an individual and you realize this. And it always is a terribly brutal thing to say to people, but it is so absolutely vital that everyone knows this. It is your first step to having a successful business. Strategy, yes. Goals, yes. All the stuff that you need to do. But if you're not interesting, don't bother renting an office. Go and play golf, because it won't work.
So how do you start people on that journey? I know myself, when after I heard you say that for the first time, you have a moment of going, oh, geez, my life's pretty boring. I'm not that exciting. Like, how do I grab someone's attention in that first 30 seconds? How do I make it interesting? How do I take out, as I've heard you talk about before, the white noise? Like, how do you start people on that process to make their story or to make what they're producing really engaging and interesting, so that person is going to read on or watch on?
Well, it isn't about you, it's about them. So it's never about you. You are not transmitting what you want to transmit. You are transmitting something that they want. And business is exactly the same. The first thing I would say is do a boring audit of your assets and lose all the white noise. So white noise, there's white noise in every industry. White noise in TV. Things like, I really want to win this. You're in a competition. Of course you want to win it. Would you ever stand next to Usain Bolt on the start line of the Olympics and say, Usain, would you like to win this? And what was he going to say to you? Well, I'm not here to juggle, am I? Of course you want to win it. It's just white noise. This is the most important day of my life. I've had 14-year-olds say that to me. And I think you've only had about 8 days in your life. This is not a big call. I'm a real people person. It's not my time to go. The one that everyone always says is this: I'm nervous, but excited. Everybody says that. Now, if you are a person who's not terribly curious, not terribly interested in people, you'll stop there. If you are an interesting producer, you will say, why? And then someone will say, because I have never sung in public before. And you'll say, why? They say, because my parents want me to be a lawyer. You go, why? Dad's a lawyer, mum's a lawyer, sister's a lawyer, everyone's a lawyer, grandparents, we're all lawyering. Lawyering's in our blood. Okay. So have you sung in public? No, never. It's the first time. Yeah. Parents here? Yeah, they are actually. They're just the 2 people in the red over there. You go, okay. They don't know you're here? No. Okay. So we will take a camera out and we will go and talk to those 2 people and we'll say, hi, what's your name? Abby. Brilliant. How come you're here today? Well, here with my husband, and my kid actually got us the tickets. Oh, right. Does your kid sing? No, kid doesn't sing. The kid's a lawyer. Would you like your kid to sing? No, lawyer. Family of lawyers, all lawyers, yeah. Can your kid sing? No, can't sing. No. And you go, we're just taking pictures of the audience. Do you mind if we? No, stay. So you've got a camera on them. You're a camera up on the stage, and then kid walks out. Parents. And it really doesn't matter whether the kid is a great singer or not, because you've just told the most beautiful story. And the way you've told that beautiful story is you're not lazy. You're more curious. You are more curious than the people around you. And you only have to be 1% more curious. And you only have to be 1% better at thinking than your competition. Because if you are, you'll beat them. Because they'll be the ones saying, nervous but excited, really want to win this, going to give it 110%, not my time to go. It's the most important day of my life. Or you're the one that says, why? And you question it and you dig a little bit deeper. When you dig deeper, you get really interesting answers, I think. So I'd say, look at what your unique selling point is. Everyone has one. It's just sometimes we forget that we have it. What makes you different to everybody in your market? Because if you're not, you don't need to exist. And you do need to exist. You need to exist. So why do you need to exist? What is it about you that makes you different to everybody else? And I think when you know that, you're winning. But you've got to be brutal. You've got to be really brutal about it. Everyone has a unique selling point, and every business has a unique selling point. If you can't find it, you're in trouble. Because I can throw a dart into your industry, hit any company. But when you offer me a point of difference, I can only have you. And that goes for being inside your company. If you offer the same opinion as everybody else, I only need 1 of you, not 10 of you. 9 of you can go. But if you're the one that thinks differently, I can never get rid of you, ever. I have to have you because you give me a different opinion. So think differently and you will always win.
I love that. I love the concept of the boring audit and just the 1% and really digging into that curiosity. So I'm curious on that note, how I know that you do quite a bit of work with corporates, and I'm really interested in how you help corporates through that process. Because when you're talking through that, I can see that with a lot of my network who are small business owners and entrepreneurs, and they can sort of really play with that. The people in my head I can hear going, oh, yeah, but how do we also do that? Is some of the corporates who have a few more boundaries and restrictions and red tape to work through. And I can say that being ex-IBM of nearly 10 years. So how do you help corporates to get that X factor and deliver?
You have to know your audience. So I've made lots of shows that were very big, noisy shows, but I've also made lots of shows that are very quiet and considered. So 1 year of my life, I made a very contentious Big Brother. And then I think I wrote a show for the ABC about books, my favorite book. And then I think I did another Big Brother, another really contentious one. And then in the break between Big Brothers, I wrote Q&A for the ABC. So it's about your audience. So you need to know your audience. And I worked at the BBC, which is built on red tape. I mean, literally everywhere you go, you're chopping red tape. It's just so red tape, it's not funny. So I think that you need to know your audience very, very well. You need to know your parameters. You need to know the industry that you're working in. And you need to imagine that your industry is Netflix. And there will be 1,000 ads on Netflix. And what you need to do is write your ad so people click on you. What is it about you that makes you more interesting? What is your story? Why are you different to everybody else? What are the problems of your industry and how are you solving them for people? What are the problems they know about and the ones they don't even know about? You know, it's like Henry Ford said, if I asked people what they wanted, they'd say faster horses. You know, we have to think differently. We have to ramp it up constantly. So I think it's having a point of difference and really knowing why you need to exist. I did some work maybe last year or the year before with a judicial body. And they were saying, you know, we're a bit worried about, you know, losing government funding. And the problem is we're not terribly sure, you know, when people ask us what we do, we're not terribly sure what we do because we do lots of things. And I said to them, why do you need to exist? And I spent a day with them. And we worked out that it's boot camp for judges, essentially. So if they didn't exist, how would judges know when the laws have changed? Like they don't have a Google alert on their phones. Oh, look, you know, who trains judges to be judges? I mean, it's not an online course that you're going to go, might just go on LinkedIn and see if there's something there for how to be a judge. They train judges. Who do judges go and talk to? You know, if they have problems. They don't go to the judge bar. There's not like a sports bar, and then next door there's a judge bar that you can go in and just sit down and go, any judges here today? Need to have a chat. You know, so they have a really vital role. They are boot camp for judges. When the laws change, they are the ones telling judges that the laws have changed. You know, say we had the death penalty and, you know, the law changes at 11 o'clock and at 2 o'clock they put someone to death and, you know, at 3 o'clock someone says, hey, big news about the law changing today. And you're like, well, that's awkward. So we do need them, of course. And I think being very clear, I would say be very clear with your messaging as a corporate. Be very clear that you have one message and not 300 messages. Because if you have 300 messages and you throw 300 tennis balls at me and I catch two, I might not catch the right two. But if you had 300 tennis balls with one message and you throw them at me, I'll definitely catch one. So one clear message, I think. You have one clear message, make America great again. Who said that?
Is that
Can you
Trump?
remember? Yeah. So what did Hillary say? Biden? Johnson? Obama?
Ooh. Oh, God, you're shaming me that I can only remember Trump. That's terrible.
No. The reason you can remember Trump is because he is the king of messaging. I mean, I don't know what make America great again means, but I know that he said it over and over and over and over again. I don't know what Hillary said. Obama said something about hope. I mean, vague, don't know. You know, ask not what you can do or your company can or country can do for you. Ask, you know, so I'll do that one again. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. Now, that is what, 50 years old, 60 years old? 60 years old. And that's the last slogan that I can remember. So it's really hard. You know, these are politicians who have huge marketing departments and publicity departments. If they can't get it right, it's very, very hard thing to do, to write your one line, your slogan, your Netflix ad. But you do, you know, you really have to have it. And you look at Trump, he was brilliant at it. You know, I mean, I didn't agree with a single thing he did, but I think he's brilliant at messaging. And when you have a message like that anyone in the world can quote and you know what it comes from, that's genius.
That is very, very, very powerful. So on that note of messaging, I want to stick with messaging because something that I picked up when I was reading your bio and I just absolutely loved, is highlighted in pink, I love it that much, was you talk about your life being spent helping smart people and companies deliver killer information with the power of a cement fist in a cashmere glove. Now, I bloody love that, but it does beg the question of going, yes, yes, I want to be that one that stands out with the killer message. But how do we actually cut through the noise? So I do want to build on that concept around how do we do that? Where do we start?
It's difficult. You have to ask yourself a number of questions. The most important one really is, what is your unique selling point? You know, what makes you different? Now, I go out into the world and I train companies on how to communicate. And there are lots of people out there doing it. And what the world probably doesn't need is another public speaker and trainer. However, I come from a really, really different background. I'm an expert in human behavior. I'm an absolute specialist. I'm the specialist with 0 qualifications. I have no qualifications. You know, I did, journalism, and I did art, and I can't remember what else, fashion or something. So I'm literally qualified to go shopping, write about it, and then draw it. That's it. But I've spent 30 years really watching people. I watch people for a living. 24 hours a day, I watch people. I watch their behavior, and I watch what they do, why they do it, what the motivations are. And I understand what motivates people, which is why my content has been watched more than 8 billion times. So I understand engagement. And people think that their market is different to my market, but it really isn't. It really, really, really isn't. We are all the same. When someone sends something funny to you, Abby, you don't think, I'll just send that to my 18 to 35-year-olds, A's, B's, and C1s. Do you? You're going to go, it's funny. I'll send it to everyone. And I think companies sometimes do that. Certainly the government thinks that their audience is different to my audience, but they're not. And one of my favourite facts is that more young people voted for the winner of Britain's Got Talent than in the general election. Now, it's funny, but it's really not funny. More people are engaged by people like me making stuff that's quite boring entertaining than they are by defence, healthcare, education, pensions, mortgages, the interest rates. What the government doesn't understand is if they made that interesting, we would be interested. I mean, it's so simple. It's so simple, but we've become very, very complicated. There's a great quote from a guy called Dave Abbott, who was an advertising guru in the UK. And he says, sheet coming at you at the speed of light is still sheet when it arrives. Now, I love that because I think we've become very complicated. But the software that I use to process everything is the same software that my parents use, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, my great-great-grandparents. It's my brain. It's evolved a little bit, but not remarkably. It's so simple. Storytelling is storytelling, and it hasn't changed. The delivery has changed, but a boring story coming at you through really, really, really fast and really strong Wi-Fi is still dull when it gets there. You've got to really think about it. You've got to produce everything you do. Think about your clients. Think about your audience. How do you interest them? And how do you tell a story really quickly? And the Tiger King, I think, is a beautiful example of that. You know, we all watched the Tiger King. It was this time last year, I think, 2 years ago. And everyone on earth was watching, all watching the Tiger King. And the reason we watched it, I think, is because the Netflix ad was so good. And it said something like, it could have said, this is the story of a man from mid-America, really bad hair, too much jewelry, who loves tigers. But it said something like, this is the story of a man and a woman who want to save big cats and kill each other. That's a good story, isn't it? That's the story I'm going to click on. What's the story of your company? It's going to make me click on that. Why are you different? And how do you create noise around what you do? I have a friend called Shed in the UK, and he worked for me on a show called The Big Breakfast a million years ago.
I love that show.
It was great. Really, really good.
It was so good.
It was fantastic. Shed was a researcher, I think, or a producer at the time. Really, really, really smart guy. he was kind of geeky before geeky was, geek chic. It was just geek. And he's now an inventor and a speaker and an innovator and an entrepreneur. And to create noise around himself, he does these really, really smart things. So he created an app around Valentine's Day one year, and it's Shed's version of Tinder. It's called Shinder. And he is the only man on it. He's the only guy. So you go on, and if you scroll, you're scrolling, and it's only him. And he said, well, I just thought I wanted to be, the most important person on the app. So I thought, well, I'll just make it me. So you go on there, and it's your chance to date Shed. Now, it went around the world. I watched him, sending me links to him on TV in Azerbaijan, when they're interviewing him about Shinder. So a guy, it's Valentine's Day, a guy's come up with a unique idea to get a date. His name's Shed. Let's speak to him. He created a book called 50 Shades of Grey, which is just a book that has 50 sheets of paper in there, and they're all grey. That's it. He did another book, What Men Think About When They're Not Thinking About Sex, and it's just an empty book. And it's been translated into about 35 languages. So he's a bestseller in so many countries because he's a thinker. And he understands that if he wants to create interest in his company, he has to create some noise around his messaging. He has to do something that is different. He has to think differently. And there's no point in standing on a soapbox saying, book me, I'm amazing. You have to show people, you have to get them interested enough to want to book you. And there's a great story. It's a very old one, but it's still one of my favorites, Abby. And it is this, and I think it's the basis of all business. Abraham Lincoln is looking out of the window at his little stable hands, and they're trying to push a calf into a barn, and the calf doesn't want to go in. And they get another one over, and push, and the calf does not want to go into the barn. And his Irish maid comes in. My family are Irish, and we are just genetically amazing. And she says, I'll get the calf into the barn. And he says, I don't think so, love. I will. And she went down, she looked at the calf, and she looked at the big buffy blokes, and she thought, I know what they want. They want the calf to go into the barn. What does the calf want? Calf wants mum. Doesn't want to go in the barn. Oof, looks a bit dark in there. So she went and switched the light on. She stuck her fingers in the calf's mouth and led the calf into the barn. Now in business, I think a lot of the time we stand behind the calf and we push. I want you to do this. I want you to go into the barn. I want you to buy my product. I want you to watch my show. I want you to engage my services. What we're not doing is looking at calf and thinking, what does the calf want? And that's the difference. I don't make TV shows or films or documentaries that I want to watch particularly. I think, what do they want? And that's exactly how I craft everything. And I think that's what businesses have to do. I think, well, it's not about us and what we want to do. It's about what they want and how we can provide that and how we can add that extra little bit of value. So shows like Gruen, the Gruen Transfer, are genius because it's entertaining and it's interesting. And the entertainment plus is the fact that you see how big businesses manipulate us. You see how supermarkets manipulate us, and you see how shopping centres manipulate us. And that's the entertainment plus. What is the entertainment plus that your company is offering me? So it's not just a basic service. What are you adding on top of it? What are you giving me that's extra? And when you're delivering that, you will cut through and you will beat your competition because you're different and you're giving me more and you're thinking about me and not about yourself.
And when you're trying to get people to get out of, pushing the calf and out of, what we care about and what we want and into what the audience wants, or the calf in this analogy, how do you recommend people change that lens? Is it going and speaking to your top customers? Is it going and doing a survey or a focus group? Or what is it? We kind of have heard it before in terms of know your audience, but I don't think that any of us, and I include myself in this, we do it as well as we could. So how do you encourage people to get that view, that lens of truly what is it the audience want?
Treat your audience with absolute respect. Treat them like they are you, but actually slightly more important than you. Look at what your competition is doing really, really well. Look at what your competition isn't doing terribly well. See where their touch points are. Look at some of the best companies in the world and what they have done that is different. Look at ads that inspire you. Humor trumps everything. Everybody who makes content knows this. Humor trumps, comedy trumps everything. We say it all the time. Come out with a big statement at the top. Always come out with a big statement, something big and grabby that is going to hook me in. Because all you were doing constantly is hook me in, keep my attention, hook me in, keep my attention, hook me in, keep my attention. What is interesting? What are the 3 things that are amazing about you that you can tell your clients? What are their problems and how do you solve them? And I think it was a speaker called Matt Church, who says there are 3 different types of problems. One is the problems that you're happy to talk about, the problems you know, the problems you're happy to talk about. Then you have the problems you're not happy to talk about. And they're the kind of personal ones that you think. So the ones that you're happy to talk about in TV, it's a very crowded market. And, we have so much competition now from streamers. And, they're the ones that I'm happy to talk about. The one that I'm not particularly happy to talk about is every morning at 8:30, the figures come out and I don't want to look like an idiot. I've commissioned the wrong show. I've made the wrong show. I've made the right show in the wrong way. It hasn't worked and I'm going to look like an idiot. And not just the people in the room are going to be looking at me, but everybody in the industry is going to be looking at me. So I've got the problems that I know that I'm happy to talk about, the problem that I know that I'm not happy to talk about, and then the problems that people don't even know they have. They don't even know. Henry Ford, people want faster horses. Would you like a car? Don't know what a car is. I think looking at, I love failure. I love problems. Because I think without problems, we can't solve anything. My second favourite fact after more people voted, young people voted in the general election, is, you'll be able to guess the answers to this, but which do you think came first? Abby Chops. Do you think it was putting wheels on a suitcase or putting a person on the moon? Which do you think humankind did first? Which problem did we solve first?
See, I want to go controversial and go, we fixed the moon first, just to be controversial.
You're absolutely right. We put someone on the moon before we thought about putting wheels on the suitcase. So the people who were walking to the rocket, carrying their bags, God, these bags are heavy. At no point did anyone say, we could do it. Should we put wheels on these suitcases? There's a thought. No, we didn't do that. We put someone on the moon first. So I think looking around, looking at your industry, seeing what the problems are, is always magical because it's unusual to do that, really. We don't do it that often. I think the most important one really is, why do you need to exist? It's a question that lots of businesses and lots of individuals I work with find very difficult to answer. And I have to say to them, until you know that, you don't really know what your business is. You don't really understand what your business is. Mark Boris tells this great story of when he was young. Kerry Packer was his mentor. And I did the Celebrity Apprentice with Mark, and there's a lot of sitting around. We used to chat a lot. I really like Mark. And Kerry said to him one day, and you may have heard this before, it's one of my favorites. He said, what's your business, Mark? And Mark was about to say, oh, well, I sell mortgages. And he said, Kerry said to him, before you say you sell mortgages, Mark, you don't sell effing mortgages. Do you understand? And Mark said, he went, yeah, of course I understand. I wasn't going to say I sell mortgages. And he said, I was sitting there thinking, what is he talking about? I sell mortgages. I've got no idea what the man's talking about. And he said he was sitting there kind of thinking, what is he? And eventually Kerry said to him, you think you sell mortgages, Mark, but you don't. What you sell dreams. You sell the dream of owning those bricks. And when you own those bricks, you can move them forward or back. You can put some more bricks on top. You can nail into those bricks. You can give those bricks to your kids, and that's financial security for your children and their children. So what you are selling is the dream of owning that home. That's what you're selling. It's not mortgages. And I like to think that all the time with everything. And I was going through, I think it was Edgecliff Station with my lovely team one Legacy Day. And there were children out selling, the legacy pins. And this little girl in school uniform said, "Do you want to buy a pin?" No. And I stood in front of her, and my team could tell that I was about to stop on my, give her a lecture. And I said to her, "You're not selling pins." And she said, "No, I'm selling pins." I said, "No, you're not. What you're selling is you're selling thank yous. Thank yous to people who have been to war, for people like us, people like me who are afraid to go, too lazy, don't want to train, I have no discipline. I'm not going to do that. But I would like someone else to go and fight my battles for me to keep this country that I live in and that I love, keep it free for me and everyone around me. I don't want to do it myself." So those people go off and they risk their lives for not very much money. People like me, too cowardly to do it. What I think you're selling is thank yous to heroes who've been to war for people like us. So next person who goes past, I want you to say, "Would you like to buy a thank you for a hero who's been to war for people like us?" And I guarantee you will sell all of them. And we went and had a coffee and came back. I'm like, "How'd you go?" She said, "Sell them all." "Yeah, I thought you would." "You bet your friends." "Nah, I haven't sold them." I said, "Yeah, because they're selling pins. They're not selling thank yous." And I think when you scratch the surface of selling pins, who wants a pin? No story with a pin. Don't need a pin. Pin's not going to add to my life, is it? In any way. But if you're selling thank yous to people who've been to war for someone like me, probably going to buy that. So what's your story? Why are you different? And make it about me. What's my problem and how are you solving it? Tell me how you're going to do that. And engage. When we are entertaining, we're engaging. And when we're engaged, we've engaged our audience, we can get them to take action. And in TV, we get people to vote for people they don't know and outcomes that don't affect them. And they give me money. They pay me for the privilege of voting for someone they don't know and an outcome that doesn't affect them. And the government can't do it. They're not looking at their audience. They're not looking at us and respecting us and interesting us. They are preaching to us, treating us like we're a bit silly, and we're not listening. And the politicians that crack that and the companies that crack that, the world is theirs. Absolutely is.
Oh, I want to stay with you all day. I have about 12 million questions, but I want to
move in. Come on, move in.
Oh, hang on. Everyone heard that. Maz said move in. I'm done. Be very careful with that. I'm there.
Got lots of vegetables in the fridge and lots of wine in the cupboard. My friend Louise, her brother, is a wine merchant, and every now and then she'll say, he's got a load of Pinot Noir that he's loving at the moment. We're brilliant. I'll buy a case. So there's always grog around here. Come around anytime you like.
Oh, everyone heard that. Brilliant. I've got that on record. I will be there, Maz, and you'll be like, "Abby, bugger off. I didn't mean it. I was just being polite."
Come and stay. I love the company.
So I want to tap into the fact that more in Britain, so back home for the two of us, more people voted on Britain's Got Talent than in the general election, because whilst firstly that is staggering, as you said, what is also fascinating is, we talked before about how do you spark my interest. We talked before about how do you create that message? How do you stand out? How do you get that initial engagement? But then I think it's fascinating how you then get people to transition from, "Oh, that's interesting, I'm going to watch that episode of Big Brother," to take action, give you the money. So how, when you're working, translating this back to corporates, how do you help them navigate that journey of going from, right, we've got the interesting story, we've got that initial interest and engagement, but into then moving on to take action?
Well, every action that you take, you need to have a killer pitch for it. So we teach pitching a lot. To pitching ideas in my world is very difficult, because if you're pitching a product, I can hold the product. If you're pitching me a new biscuit or a new bread, I can taste it and go, man, that's good bread. That is really good bread. If you make good bread, people will taste it and they'll buy it. And you have an industry, you have a business. Pitching ideas is really different because they're not tangible. So there is a method to it. So when we say you need a great one-pager is 2 sides of A4 that contains everything you need. So you need a brilliant title for it. Then you need a subtitle. So say something like The Weakest Link. So, actually, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll take you through a TV show that is in the marketplace at the moment, which is a dating show called Money Can't Buy Me Love. And someone came to me with a friend of theirs that is, she runs a company in the UK, a woman called Lisa Palmer. She's super smart, absolutely charming and lovely and genuine. And she finds love for very rich people. That's her business. So she has a niche. She's a niche business. There are not many people doing it. For £10,000, I think it is, she'll find you 3 dates that are absolutely rock solid. I think it's for something like 20,000. She will keep going until you say, I'm in love, we're done. She won't invoice you until you have success. You know, that's a brilliant service, isn't it? So she will keep going. She's amazing. If you say that you want to date someone who loves horses, she will go to Windsor Polo. She'll go and go to trainers and buyers, and she'll take you to the races, and she'll go to Ascot. She'll find 3 people that tick all the boxes that you are after. It's a brilliant service. And a friend of mine who was Steven Spielberg's publicist contacted me, and he said, they're talking about doing a TV show. They thought it'd be a kind of fun thing to do, quite interesting. Are you interested? I said, I don't really work in TV anymore. No, I really like the idea. And he said, you know, let's think about it. And I thought about it. I thought it'd be fun. And I think we can do something with this. So I thought differently about it. And I decided that what we do is, one of my areas of specialty is putting people in houses. I've done 5 series of Big Brother. They've all worked. They're all number 1. So you would trust me to do this. I would feel very safe you giving me that money. So we put the rich people in the house. We make them over. We have a psychologist there to make them over mentally as well, help them to be confident people. And I thought, if we're going to have it in a house, how can I create noise around this show and around this idea? How can I create noise? Because you need to have noise. When you have noise, you have virality. You know, people are talking about it. So for every $1 I spend on advertising, I'm really getting $100 worth of value because 100 people are talking about it. So, you know. So I thought, well, who's the most famous butler that I could have running the house? So I thought it was Paul Burrell, isn't it? The Queens Butler. That's
exactly where my head went. Yeah.
Exactly. Of course, Abby. So I contacted Paul, and I'd been in touch with him years ago, I think to be on something like The Celebrity Apprentice. And I really liked him. And we booked in to talk for like half an hour, and we were talking for about 4 hours. He's just charming and lovely and funny and clever, and you know, what a background. I mean, my God, what a background. So he said he'd do it. And I thought, well, that's brilliant, because that's a bit of noise around this, because no one knows Lisa. They do know Paul. And we contacted a lovely woman called Sally Windsor. And Sally is a writer in the UK. She's a tabloid journalist. And we said, can you write us a press release and send it off to The Sun? And we sent it off to The Sun online. They ran it. Paul Burrell has a new job. He's come out of retirement. He said he'd never work again after working for the Queen and Princess Diana. But he's on the show, Money Can't Buy Me Love. The Sun online, 30 million. Is it 30 million? 300 million? I don't know. 30 million reads, say, audience. And it was picked up by the Irish Times, the Indian Times. I mean, you know, if you Google it, it's picked up by about 40 different publications. So it went around the world for us. And 2 of the biggest companies in the world contacted us and said, we've read about this show. Is it yours? Yes. It's brilliant. We're very interested in it. Can we talk? So what I could have done is I could have written a show that's quite straightforward. It's about dating for rich people. And thought, you know, what we'll do is we'll just send them off on really exciting, extravagant dates. But I thought, no, I'll play to my strengths. I'm going to ask for conservatively $25 million. You've got to feel really safe giving me that money. How can I make you feel safe giving me your money, giving me your business? I'll tell you my history. 5 Series Big Brother. They've all worked. They were all number one, like way number one. So you feel safe doing business with me. How do I create noise around my product? I'm going to think differently, think a bit harder than everyone else. I know what I'll do. I'll get Paul Burrell. Been on I'm a Celebrity. People love him. Documentary about him recently. He's, what he doesn't know about rich people with broken hearts, right in the back of the spoon. Princess Diana's right-hand man, most beautiful, privileged woman in the world who just had a broken heart. He knows about that, doesn't he? He's an expert. So what do I do to create some noise around my business? I think differently. I think, well, if I want people talking about it, I have to get people to want to talk about it. Abraham Lincoln. So let's write a press release. Let's put it in the papers. Let's make sure that everyone knows about this show. And then they will come to us. So rather than us selling it, they came to us, knock, knock, knock. Is this your show? Yes. So everything I did, I kind of looked at it in a different way. And there are only 2 ways, I think, of doing business or thinking. And that is you do the same as everyone else, you do it a little bit better, or you do the opposite. It's all you can do. You do the same as everyone else, do it a little bit better, and you'll succeed. The Voice and the X Factor. I made the X Factor. The Voice came along. It was a little bit better than us. It had a point of difference, unique selling point. Had the turning chairs. I hated them for it. Or you do the opposite and you come up with Gogglebox. So when we're all doing these big singing and dancing shows that cost gazillions, the genius that is Gogglebox came along and they said, nah, we're not going to be in a big studio. We're going to make a show that is watching people, watching TV and commenting on it. It's the exact opposite. Or you can't ask that brilliant show where you can ask anything. How do blind people put their makeup on? Oh, never really thought about it. How do you know your partner's walked in the door and not someone else? Oh, I don't know. Well, why don't you ask them? You can't ask that. Of course you can. Now that would cost 50 cents to make. It's so cheap and it is genius. Genius. It costs the same amount of money, the same amount of time to think brilliantly or think lazily. And when you think brilliantly, it's when it works. You think it just a little bit differently. So if everyone is thinking, oh, I'll take out a 4-page ad in whatever, and, I'll just go and pitch everyone. And you think, no, I'll create noise and I'll try and create a situation that I will get the calf to do what I want it to do, but it thinks it wants to do it. And when you can do that, then you're winning, I think.
That is so, so, so powerful. Oh my goodness, I'm going to be listening back to this so many times. I'm trying to take notes subtly.
I love you.
I want to translate that into our current environment. So as of the time of recording this, we're in lockdown again. And so, I think there's challenging the status quo of going, okay, well, we're all on Zoom. How do you stand out when you're on Zoom? And how do you do something differently when we're all at home? We can't necessarily, there's certain things that are out of bounds at the moment when you're in lockdown. So you mentioned to me that you have a formula which has the best name on the planet, and I'm going to let you share it. And so I want to talk about bringing all this thinking differently to Zoom and to lockdown. Can you share with us your formula?
My vavavoom, how to vavavoom your zazazum. Yes, so it's very simple, ABCDEF of Zoom, and it's really basic. So whatever you want to do, whatever you want to happen, you have to create the circumstances for it to happen. I mean, it's very simple. People don't think like this. People are not terribly strategic. I think that, you think, no, focus. So when you are on Zoom, there are very simple things that you can do. A is your attire. So what are you wearing? Because every time you look at a human being, you take a snapshot and you decide who they are. Now, I do it very quickly because I've interviewed about 12,000 people. So I am very switched on. People walk into castings, I look at them, snapshot, and We all do it. We don't know that we do it. So you do it, Abby. Every time you look at a human being, you would take a mental snapshot and you will decide whether they're rich, poor, confident, not confident, whether they've got imposter syndrome, they've got a bit of swagger, whether they're successful or not, whether you can trust them or not. Are they going to lie to you? Are they married? Are they single? All of these things. Are you safe in their company? Women do this a lot. We don't even know we're doing it, but we are, the brain's job is to keep you alive, and then everything else. A, as you retire, what do you look like? Because that's the first thing anyone notices about you. What do your clothes say? Your clothes tell a story. Every time you put your hand in the wardrobe, you're telling the story of you. And people forget this. And there's a great scene in The Devil Wears Prada about fashion. And they're saying, you just drag that out of the, bargain bin, and you don't think the people in this room have made that decision for you. But when you think about people like Mark Zuckerberg, very smart. Why did Mark Zuckerberg wear a grey hoodie, Abby? Why?
So he had his uniform, and I actually understood it to be more around paring down decisions and around not wanting to waste time making decisions in the morning on what do I wear. Same as Obama wore a blue suit or a grey suit, and he always pared down his decisions and went, no, I need to run a country. I'm not going to waste my brain power on what am I going to wear. But they also created, that look that they then became known for in their uniform.
Yes. So if I were Mark Zuckerberg's press person, I would say that. Now, what I think he chose a hoodie is because he wanted to still look like a student. If he'd been wearing a really sharp Armani suit or, whatever the suit of choice is at the moment, we'd all think that he was a businessman, and we'd be afraid of Facebook, be afraid to share any information or our photos or our stories, fill out a quiz, all those touch points. But because he wears a hoodie, we feel like he's just kind of like 18 and, he's just like, he looks like your son's friend. Or he's running one of the biggest companies on earth. Same with Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs would have thought so carefully about, it was a black polo neck, but it was kind of, a bit beatnik. It was Yohji Yamamoto. It was very carefully thought through. It was about their brand. You want to say it's because I'm too busy, being so intellectual, but actually it is absolute marketing. Why did Trump look like a tramp? Why? Because he didn't want you to think he was the rich guy. George Clooney says, we're voting. Middle America is voting for a man who poos in a gold toilet. And he's pointing the finger at me and saying, I'm privileged. You go, yeah. Trump looked like he worked in the factory, but didn't own the factory. The fact is, Trump owned the factory, stream of factories. He owned the town. But he didn't want to look like that. And there were some decent tailors, I'm guessing, in Washington. But he didn't, did he? He just kept that dreadful, ill-fitting suit. Very, very clever. So what do your clothes say about you? What does your background say? B, background. Lots of people will have a white wall, and I always think, are you in witness protection? What does your white wall say about you? In content making, we never shoot people against the white wall. We will turn them around. We'll shoot them against some action because the background tells a story. So this tells you I'm living somewhere that has trees outside. It's quite a nice background. I've got my little rock star. I've got a little bit of art there. So I'm probably a bit of a creative person. So B is your background. C is your content. Well, your background does tell a story. Everything about you tells a story. That snapshot of you, when I first look at you, it tells me, police look at things all the time. They look at little tells, and, producers do as well. We're trying to read your story constantly. What is your story? What clues are you giving me? C is your content and your conversation. So have a think about how you are going to start your Zoom meeting. What are you going to say that has impact? How do you create an agenda that is interesting? How can you make it shorter and shorter and shorter? In TV, we will create something that is 3 hours long, then we cut it back to 2 hours, cut it back to an hour, cut it back to about 47 minutes. It's 47 minutes of gold. In conferences, I do a lot of work with people, helping them with their online conferences now. Because an online conference is a TV show, if you do it properly. If you don't, it is the dullest afternoon of your clients and your employees' lives. It's your duty to make it interesting. So you've done your A, B, C. D is your delivery. How do you deliver your information in a way that is palatable? How do you deliver it in a way that is interesting? E, your eye line. So eye like an eye line is center or just a little bit above center. If I am looking down at you, I look intimidating. And if I'm looking up at you, I look a little bit like I'm afraid. But this is kind of a powerful place. I'm owning my space. The brain really likes thirds. So, I am third there, and third there. And your framing is really nice. And if you look at pieces of art that we really love, they're split into thirds, like Mona Lisa, or that shot of guys sitting on up in the air on little, what do you call them? Big metal, what do you call them? There's a shot of guys, the top of like the Empire State Building that's being built, and they're all eating their sandwiches. That shot.
Oh, yeah, the one that they used for Friends. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's in threes. We really like that. The reason that shot really works is because the brain really likes it. So you've got A, attire, B, your background, C, your content, D, your delivery, E, your eye line, and F, be friendly. People forget that because it's Zoom, you still need to be warm and friendly. If you feel nervous, my advice to people is cut out a picture of someone you love and pop it over your camera. And some of my friends have their dogs, some have their families, you might have Dolly Parton or whoever it is that you love. Pop them, and every time you look at your camera, you're seeing someone that you love, and that helps. But I think if you do your A, B, C, D, E, and F before you start, then you're in a really good place. But I think treat it like it's a TV show. Make it as short as you can, make it as meaty as you can, lose all the white noise, think differently about it, and set the scene. If you can be a little bit funny, be a little bit funny. It really does help. And be kind, be friendly to everyone. Why would you not?
I think we all need a little bit of that right now. I love that. And I love the name, Vavavoom Your Zoom. It made me think of, I don't know if you'd already left the UK by this point, but it made me think of Thierry Henry. He did a TV advert, and he said in his really nice French accent that I'm not going to do, that he said, it's like, is it the Vavavoom? And it was a car advert. So as soon as I saw the name of it, I was like, oh, Thierry Henry.
Thierry Henry, what a great name.
Oh, yes. Well, I'm in the football zone today after, day we're recording this is when England, unfortunately, have just lost in the footy, but it's got me in football mode.
It's a dark day. Although I have to say, how hot were the Italians? If you didn't be beaten by anyone, I'd find my mind drifting. I think, oh yeah, of course. Well, sorry, yes. Very attractive.
Well, there you go. At least there was some part of it that was enjoyable other than England losing.
There's a little bit of joy in everything if you look for it.
That is true. So look, I want to pull back to one final question, because you have given us so much gold. We have talked about how are we interesting enough to stand out. We've talked around messaging and storytelling. We've talked about Zoom. We've talked about, how Trump does his messaging. We've talked about so many things. If people want to now have information overload, and like me, they've just got lists and lists and lists, and they want one place to start, having 8 billion worth of content views, where would be the one place you would advise people to start?
Book me.
Done.
Really have to think. I come into companies and I work with individuals, and I run workshops on really simple messages that change the way people work. So I'm very clear. People say, can you deliver this message in 20 minutes? Can you deliver it in 2 hours? I go, yes, of course I can. I'm a TV producer. What I'm a specialist in is content. I've done this for 30 years. All I've done is thought about my audience. What are your problems? How do I solve them? What are your problems? How do I solve them? So I think get someone in and get them to look at your assets and look at your assets yourself. The first thing I would do is debore. So if you haven't got the brain space to think, just do a boring audit. Just really debore your business. Get someone in, me or someone else, to really look at you differently and to tell you what's wrong. And I love people who point out problems. As I said before, without problems, we have no solutions. And failure is a really good friend to you. If you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough. The people I love in my life, so I have some very good friends. One of my friends, Nikki, we call her Diamond Nikki because she loves diamonds. And if you go shopping with Nikki, she will tell you that everything is beautiful on you because she's so absolutely charming and lovely and sweet. And then you get at home and you think, I look like a goat in that. I look absolutely awful. And then you say to her, why did you say to buy that? I spent like $300 on that jacket. I look like a moose in it. And she goes, oh, you really liked it and you wanted it. Now, my friend Fee is from Yorkshire. She's very black and white. So I'd put something on and say, what do you think? She'd go, you look like a goat. I go, oh, okay. She goes, there's no point in me telling you look brilliant in it. You'll never wear it. It's no point. You don't look great in it, but that will suit you. So I like people who give me bad news because I think if you give me bad news, that makes me better. Make sure there are people in your company and in your life. Don't have friends who are awful to you because my friend Fee is not awful by any means. She's the most beautiful human. She will give me bad news and then she'll tell me something amazing. This not good, this good, that not good. Think about this. Have people in your life who question every single thing you do. Make sure there is someone at work who is the Dr. No. I love those people. My job, when I'm doing my job very well, you shouldn't know I'm doing it, but I will come in and I will ask you questions that nobody has asked before and make you look at your business in a slightly different way. And it's the difference between, I did some work with Australia Post and I was saying to them, I think you're the only company in Australia that walks down every street. That's a big calling card. You walk down every single street in Australia. Don't think anyone else does that. And I think the other thing that's beautiful about Australia Post is, my little grandchildren want to send me a picture for Granny. How many fingerprints are on that envelope between it leaving, my godchild or my granddaughter or whoever it is, and it reaching me? And the woman that I was working with, she said, about 35. I think 35 fingerprints, 35 hands, work hard to get it from there to you. And I think that's your story. It's not about, whatever it is. I don't even know what the slogan is for Australia Post, but it should be that. 35 fingerprints from them to you. You think 35 people get up every morning to make sure you get your letters. Just that one letter. That's beautiful, isn't it? It's a really nice story. So think about your story. Make it slightly different to everyone else. What's your unique selling point? What's going to make me love you? Because I have to love you. And people say, we do business with people that we like. I disagree completely. I think we do business with people we think are interesting. Because when they're interesting, they're going to make me interesting. And if we were just working with people we liked, we'd be working with, people who stroke cats and, 6-year-olds. But we're not, are we? We're working with people who are really interesting. And I think it's not interesting to say that we just work with people we like. It's kind of lazy, isn't it? Think a bit harder, think a bit further, because actually we do work with people that we find really interesting.
Well, Maz, we find you bloody interesting and absolutely love you. Where can people reach out to you and get in touch?
I like LinkedIn at the moment. I have 2 websites. They're terrible. So, it's that funny thing, isn't it? I'm the builder's house, but I'm concentrating more on my clients than myself. So LinkedIn, I'm Maz Speaks on LinkedIn. And I'm about to redo all my assets. So at some point, I will have a lovely website and I will work on myself and not my clients. But in the meantime, I'm working on them. So yes, the easiest way of finding me is Maz Speaks on LinkedIn. Drop me a line.
Perfect. Thank you so much for so many nuggets of gold. And I absolutely loved every second of that and got so much out of it. And I know our audience will do too. So thank you so much, Maz.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on this. And I think what you're doing is brilliant. And it's a very kind thing that you're doing, sharing information with people. So thank you very much.